think it's a manufactured issue, and it doesn't, I don't think we are overpopulated, basically, bottom line. I think there's plenty of room for all the billions of people on this world. It's just that we're mismanaging our resources and creating scarcity, or we're not, but the corporations are, because, scarcity increases value, and that increases prices, and that increases perceived value. And I think it's all just gets back down to the Federal Reserve banking system making us use their monopoly money for their overpriced stuff that we should be able to grow in our own backyard without having to use genetically modified Monsanto seeds that are, not healthy for us.
Go to your local store, right, and buy seeds, and be surprised, about the seeds you buy, because 90% of the seeds you buy, unless you buy organic seeds, you know what? They're designed to one time only. So, I mean, if you have, like, for example, I tried, those peas one year. I figured, okay, I'm going to save and dry the peas, right, and grow them in next year. Well, guess what? None of them would do anything.
Yeah, I think that's what they do. They genetically engineered them so they are one-offers. You just get your one crop and that's it, and you don't have any seeds to replenish. And then I think then you have to go and buy more seeds from that manufacturer, whoever's selling it to you. So, yeah, you can't. I guess you have these, like, fruits and vegetables that'll grow but not produce any seed. They're like seedless. I think it started with the watermelon when they started making seedless watermelons years ago. And now they can make seedless anything, and that way you can't grow it. In fact, I've always thought that fruit, let's say Mother Nature knows best, and an apple tree grows. And that apple tree grows, and it starts bearing all those apples, and all those apples fall to the ground. And I think that we're not supposed to eat those apples. That tree is making those apples so that they will go to the ground and rot and create a new tree out of that apple. If you take a whole apple and just stick it in the ground and bury it, it's got all of the nutrients there for the seed to grow out of that, rotted piece of fruit, and boom, it's going to, grow another tree, another apple tree. I don't think we're supposed to be eating all this fruit that we eat and all these things that we actually eat. In fact, one of my next books that I'm working on right now is about the decoding the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, which really gets into how to live forever, basically, and get to a point where you can drop your own body and be a living soul, a true, soul that has left its body and can go anywhere and pick up other bodies, which is what Thoth said that he did. And one of the things that you can do to go through that process to where you can detach yourself from the physical world is to actually stop eating. And so my wife and I have been and I had done this, I did this a few years ago when I was living in Los Angeles. I pretty much got to the point, and I did it on purpose, to where I was really dramatically slowing my aging process by not consuming anything. Basically just water with some lemon in it and raw almonds. And I was getting to the point where I was only maybe eating like every other day. Right? And then I was getting to the point where I had so much energy because I wasn't consuming dead cooked food that I didn't need that much sleep either. I could go 2 or 3 days at a time, and it was regularly I could go a couple days normally without sleeping. So I didn't need to eat after a while, not much, and I didn't need to sleep that much. And I think we got the sun and moon going around us over these lights that are controlling our sleep systems. Is it the circadian rhythm or something like that? And puts us into, a sleep state. And, in fact, I've even found out about the moon. I used to think that the moon was reflecting sunlight, but it's not. People have been doing studies now and found out that the moon is actually putting out its own ambient light. And I think it carries a signal. Everything is a light wave. So that signal coming from the moon, which is light energy, does something to our biology or our system that makes us want to sleep.
I don't know. Ron, I don't even think the moon is what we think it is. I mean, I've had some major guests on my show, and I have done some reading what they supplied me with. It's funny. Every time we have ever sent an astronaut on the moon and they landed, right? One of the things they've done is taken their whatever, how they got there, right? And they basically crash it back on the moon to see, what type of effects it has on the moon. And each time they've done it, the moon would ring. The first time, it wasn't quite as powerful, and it rang for hours. The moon did. And then they figured, okay, well, the next time we land on the moon, we'll, crash the device back onto the moon with a little bit more power to it, a little bit more, bang to it. And the last time the moon, that we were on the moon and we, put their little thing that they used to transport themselves, onto the moon and crashed it back on it, the moon rang for a couple days. That all points that the moon is not solid. It's hollow. And, and they have a lot of scientists are coming basically saying that the moon, is way older than Earth. But they basically feel, or at least some scientists feel, that the moon was brought here by some other civilization. And, it's a platform to basically watch humanity, or whatever. That's what they're saying. But they're saying that the moon is not, a natural formed whatever.
Right. I agree. There's a lot of interesting theories, or several interesting theories. And I've read those same theories, too. In fact, I know David Icke is proponent of that, and I like David Icke. I've listened to a lot of his videos. I've read some of his books, and he's one of the guys who started getting into how the moon is really a hollow,
sphere.
I guess, space station.
Yeah, a sphere.
Yeah, and it's some type of a space station. Really, that is, if there. And let's say there is outer space, and let's say Saturn does exist as they show it to us. That it's a like a enhancer signal. It takes the signal coming from Saturn, is what he says, and then it enhances it and sends it down to Earth, and that is kind of like an overlay of our reality and causing us to see the image of our surroundings and our reality the way they want us to see it, but it's not really what it is. Like, we're seeing an illusion. And I don't know how to see past this illusion if the illusion exists. But that's one of David Icke's theories. Let me ask you a question, Gary.
Yeah, go ahead.
My wife and I, we take our dog for a walk pretty much every night before we go to bed. And at night, we've been looking up at the sky now for several months. And there are these gigantic bright lights that do not look like stars. They look like they're inside of our atmosphere, and they're low on the horizon. Have you noticed those too, or talked to anyone who's noticed them?
Well, what I said here just recently to one of my guests, Douglas, I told him, in fact, last week, I said, you know what? What you need to do is get yourself a pair of infrared binoculars and go look at the sky at night, not around a city, okay, because you don't want light pollution. Right. And I swear to God, you're going to see things that you can't even justify or even explain to yourself.
Really? And do you have a pair?
You know what? Back around 2002, like I said, I ran a chain of large professional camera stores. And we would import, at that time, Russian infrared binoculars. And one night I decided, I'm going to take a pair home, and I started looking at the sky. And all of a sudden, I started seeing things that you couldn't see with a pair of binoculars or even a telescope. And
what were you seeing? Like what? Like, describe one.
Well, put it this way. They weren't satellites, for example. A satellite goes in a certain direction and, in a certain movement. I would see movements going up, down, sideways, speeding up, slowing down. And, and I don't want to go into too far because I don't want people to think I'm a crackpot. But I saw some strange things that I turned around and told some other people, like the person that ran the observatory up here in Puyallup, Washington at that time. And, he didn't even realize it. He went out and got a pair, came back and told me the same thing. He was seeing things that he couldn't see with their telescope. And it totally shocked and alarmed him.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. We don't realize how much is around us that we don't see and we don't hear. Our eyes and ears operate in a small frequency range, and it's this story about the binoculars and infrared binoculars brings me back to, I have my computer and I got like 150 story ideas that I've written down over time that I'm creating into books and movies and stuff. And one of them is called Spectrum, about these kids who develop these glasses that they can tune to whatever frequency they want to, and it's called Spectrum, and they start realizing that there's worlds within worlds right next to them. All they have to do is tune their frequency to it. And then they come up with this, then they build a suit like that they can wear, and they can tune the frequency of the outfit that they're wearing, and then they can immerse themselves into that frequency that they want to be in, and they start discovering all of these beings and worlds all around them. And that's probably really close to the truth, because, we do see and hear at a specific range, just like how a radio operates. I would love to get a pair of binoculars like that, or even a telescope like that is not only infrared, but that sees in other, and I don't know a lot about spectrums as far as infrared and whatever else we see, and I would love to get something or develop something or find something that can look in all these different frequency ranges and hear too, because there's like ghosts, for instance. I kind of believe that ghosts are actually living souls that are just outside of our frequency range, and they're living and operating in that area, and we sometimes just happen to see their vibration, and they probably see us. Kind of like that movie The Others with Nicole Kidman, where she thought her house was haunted, but she was really haunting a house also, and she was a ghost of the other dimension that was experiencing her presence.
Well, Ronald, I'm 66. When I was in junior high school, I think like 7th grade or 8th grade, I remember, the teacher was talking about, maybe there might be UFOs, planets and all this stuff, and then I asked the teacher at the time, and I still remember this. I said, look, why can't there be life on Earth that we just can't see? Because you're telling us, right, that atoms and molecules are not solid, right? They're moving, okay? So in a different dimension, in a different plane, what we have here might not exist. So there could be different, it can be all different types of life on this planet that, we don't know because they don't exist to us, and we don't exist to them, but they're here.
And see, here's the frustrating thing about this is you have these questions, I have these questions, the listeners want to know, we want answers, and I firmly believe that there are people on this earth who know the truth about everything. They have the answers. And they won't give it to us, and I don't understand why. I think maybe we should. Sometimes I think this is a game, and that we've all volunteered to come in and we're just playing in this game, and that you're not supposed to know the game. You know how like when it's a surprise party and you don't want the person to know that he's about to have a surprise party, so because it ruins the surprise. And so maybe we've all volunteered to come here and we don't remember, but we came here because we're just playing out some game here and we're just having fun. And when we're done, I guess we get to make the choice to come back to this place or another place. Sometimes I kind of hope and think that that's what it is, and maybe that's why they're not telling us. Or it's the other end where it's nefarious and we're like, I don't know, being used and manipulated beyond our control. We don't even understand it. There's abductions that we're not aware of. I mean, I kind of think that everybody's actually had alien abductions and that they're being conducted by hybrid beings along with the government, people working for the government or military. And so it's maybe it's one or the other. I don't know.
Well, you remember Dr. Lear passed away a couple of years ago. He did the removal of these little devices, implants.
Yeah.
Yeah,